A year after its explosive debut, The Acolyte remains one of the most polarizing entries in the Star Wars franchise, a flashpoint in a fandom that has increasingly found itself divided along cultural and ideological lines. Much like The Last Jedi before it, The Acolyte was less a television show than a cultural Rorschach test, exposing deep fractures in the way fans interpret, engage with, and ultimately fight over Star Wars. Created by Leslye Headland, The Acolyte arrived with a bold premise, a mystery thriller set during the waning days of the High Republic era, featuring a largely new cast of characters, a darker tone, and a pointed effort toward inclusivity. With Headland's outspoken progressive views and the marketing campaign's focus on diversity as a core feature, some corners of the fandom were on the offensive before the show even premiered. Certain YouTube creators and social media figures, already hostile toward Disney's stewardship of the franchise, seized on The Acolyte as a convenient punching bag, spinning it as the ultimate example of what they deride as woke Star Wars. To be clear, The Acolyte did have legitimate creative critiques. Pacing issues, underdeveloped subplots, and some uneven performances were noted by professional critics and general audiences alike. But those discussions were largely drowned out by the culture war erupting around it. On one side were fans eager to defend the show against bad faith attacks, praising its ambition, visual design, and philosophical depth. On the other, detractors doubled down on claims that Star Wars was being hijacked for political agendas, framing The Acolyte as a final straw, rather than just another chapter in a sprawling galaxy. In this, The Acolyte follows in the controversial footsteps of The Last Jedi. Rian Johnson's 2017 film similarly ignited a firestorm. Hailed by some as the boldest Star Wars movie since The Empire Strikes Back, and condemned by others as a betrayal of what the franchise should be. Its subversion of expectations, refusal to lionize legacy characters, and emphasis on failure and nuance challenged long-held fan assumptions. That audacity earned it acclaim from critics and sparked a fury among purists. The resulting discourse, often toxic, deeply personal, and endlessly rehashed, reshaped how Lucasfilm approached its future projects. In the aftermath of The Last Jedi, Solo, a Star Wars story arrived like a wounded animal. Despite being a perfectly serviceable, fun, and relatively apolitical Star Wars adventure, Solo bore the brunt of the post-Last Jedi fallout. Many fans simply weren't ready to re-engage. The fatigue was real, the anger still fresh. The movie's underwhelming box office performance became the justification for a dramatic scaling back of theatrical projects. Now, nearly 7 years later, The Acolyte seems to have triggered a similar backlash cascade. The show aired just months before Skeleton Crew, a coming-of-age Star Wars story produced by John Watts and Dave Filoni. Meant to be a lighter, more adventurous tale in the spirit of The Goonies, or E.T., Skeleton Crew was quietly released into a fractured and fatigued fandom. Viewership lagged. Online conversation was muted. Once again, a fun Star Wars property was left adrift in the wake of a contentious predecessor. The damage is hard to quantify, but easy to feel. Much like post-Solo, Lucasfilm restructured its approach to theatrical releases, the reception to The Acolyte has seemingly accelerated the company's pivot to event-level storytelling. With Andor Season 2 positioned as the last major release, and The Mandalorian and Grogu films slated for 2026, the galaxy far, far away is entering a rare period of dormancy. Fewer projects, bigger stakes, tighter focus. Ironically, Andor, the least Star Wars-y of all modern Star Wars stories, may be what steadies the ship. While The Acolyte and The Last Jedi dared to challenge tropes and provoke the fan base, Andor invited audiences to engage more deeply, without making them feel like the franchise was lecturing them. It didn't ask viewers to pick sides, it simply asked them to pay attention. Its return could serve as a soft reset, a reminder that Star Wars can be meaningful, mature, and even political, without sacrificing cohesion or alienating large swaths of its fan base. The long-term legacy of The Acolyte, like that of The Last Jedi, will likely depend on perspective. Some will continue to see it as a symptom of franchise decay, the result of misplaced priorities and heavy-handed messaging. Others will look back on it as a necessary risk, an ambitious and deeply personal work that tried to move the needle, even if it stumbled in execution. As time passes and emotions cool, we may begin to appreciate the ways in which it enriched the Star Wars mythos, particularly in how it explored the Jedi Order's blind spots, the Sith's patient strategy, and the nature of imbalance in the Force. But more than anything, the Acolyte and the Last Jedi will be remembered not just for what they said, but for what they revealed. They uncovered just how impossible it is to make Star Wars for everyone when the community itself cannot agree on what Star Wars is. They showed how nostalgia can be both a bridge and a barrier, and they demonstrated, painfully, repeatedly, that the greatest threat to the galaxy might not be the Sith, the Empire, or even bad writing. It might just be us.